It started with a favor I should have refused, a blind date, arranged by a business partner who swore the woman was perfect, though I had no interest in romance. My calendar was already suffocating, split between running a multinational company and raising my 6-year-old daughter, Lily, alone after my wife's death, but the partner insisted, saying it would look good, humanize me, to investors. So I agreed, resigned to spend an hour in a dim cafe making small talk. I expected boredom, an awkward meal, maybe a polite goodbye. What I didn't expect was the girl who walked in, wet hair clinging to her temples from the drizzle outside, worn sneakers squeaking against the tiled floor, and eyes so guarded they looked like they'd been taught not to expect kindness. She paused at the door, brushing back damp strands, her coat 2 sizes too large and fraying at the cuffs. In her hands, she clutched a duct-taped backpack like it carried her entire life. I remember thinking she looked misplaced in that cafe of glass lamps and polished espresso machines, yet she carried herself with a quiet defiance, as if she had promised herself not to shrink even when the world demanded it. When our eyes met, she gave a small, nervous smile, lips trembling just slightly. "You must be Daniel," she said, her voice steady but soft. I stood unsure, because she wasn't the type of woman my business partner would have set me up with. No fashionable dress, no calculated glamour. She was something else entirely, raw, unvarnished. "Yeah," I said, pulling out her chair. "And you're Eva," she replied, setting the backpack down carefully at her feet, as if guarding it. She glanced around, fidgeting with her sleeves. "I'm sorry I'm late. Bus broke down." Her honesty disarmed me. Most people I met were rehearsed, polished, performing. But here was a girl apologizing for a bus delay like it was a sin. I ordered us coffee, and when the waiter left, I noticed her eyes dart briefly toward the pastry case before flicking away, almost guilty. She hadn't eaten. Something in me tightened. "So, Eva," I said, searching for neutral ground, "what do you do?" She hesitated, fingers tightening around her paper cup. "I used to work retail, but the store closed. Right now, I'm between things." She said it with dignity, chin slightly lifted, though her cheeks flushed. The next morning, I couldn't concentrate. My office windows overlooked the city skyline, glass towers piercing a pale blue sky, but my mind kept returning to the image of her pressed against the bus window, rain streaming down her face like uncried tears. I had her first name, nothing else. The date had been arranged by my partner's wife, who confirmed, after some gentle prodding, that Eva volunteered occasionally at a small community center on the south side. It was all I needed. I drove there that evening, past streets where neon signs flickered over pawnshops and laundromats, until I found the squat brick building with peeling paint. Inside, the smell of instant coffee and old books mixed with the hum of tired voices. A group of children gathered around a table where Eva sat, her hair tied back messily, her thrift store cardigan slipping from one shoulder as she helped them with homework. She looked up, surprised, when she saw me standing awkwardly at the doorway. "Daniel," she said, her tone half warning, half curious, "what are you doing here?" "I came to see you," I admitted, then softened it, "and to see this place." Her lips pressed together, clearly battling embarrassment. "I told you you wouldn't understand. Try me." I echoed her own words from the night before. The children interrupted with questions about spelling and multiplication, and I caught the way she smiled at them, weary but patient, her fingers guiding theirs over worksheets. It wasn't rehearsed charm, it was survival shaped into kindness. When the kids were dismissed, she reluctantly let me walk her home. The contrast hit hard, my polished shoes clicking against cracked sidewalks, her sneakers worn thin at the toes. At her building, paint peeled from the doorframe, and taped notices curled at the edges of mailboxes. Inside her apartment, I saw the hardship laid bare, a fridge holding only a jar of mustard, half a loaf of bread, and a dented can of soda, a single bulb flickering above, and on the floor by the couch, a small pair of children's shoes taped at the soles. I frowned. "Eva, You have a child? She froze, throat tightening. Then a small boy padded out in pajamas, rubbing his eyes. Mom, he asked softly. She pulled him close, kissing his head. Back to bed, Noah. Her voice cracked just slightly. He obeyed, trusting her with the easy faith of a child who didn't see how close they were to the edge. Widow, she whispered when the door closed. Her eyes flicked up to mine. Car accident 3 years ago. It's just me and him, and we're barely holding on. I didn't know what to say. My chest ached. The woman I'd met at that cafe wasn't just poor. She was carrying the full weight of life for herself and her son. Over the next weeks, I found excuses to see her. Groceries delivered under the guise of leftovers. Job leads disguised as casual suggestions. Afternoons where Lily and Noah played together, while Eva and I sat on her second-hand couch, sipping weak coffee. She resisted my help fiercely at first, pride bristling whenever I reached for my wallet, but I learned to offer differently, through time, through listening, through not treating her as fragile, but as someone strong who had simply run out of options. The 7-minute rehook came one bitter night when I found her crying quietly over an eviction notice curled on the table. Her hands trembled as she tried to hide it. It's fine, she said too quickly, wiping her eyes. I'll figure something out. I picked it up, reading the bold red letters, my throat tightening. Eva, let me cover this, just this once. No. She stood pacing, hair falling from its tie. If I take your money, I'll owe you, and I can't. You won't owe me anything. I cut in, voice rougher than I meant. You've given me more than you know. You've made me laugh again. You've let my daughter feel normal, don't you see? You're not the one who owes anything. I do. She stared at me, breathing fast, lips trembling, torn between anger and relief. Finally, her shoulders sagged, her eyes filling. I don't want your pity, Daniel. I stepped closer, so close I could see the sheen of tears in her lashes. And I don't want to pity you. I want to love you. The words hung in the silence, electric, terrifying. Her breath hitched, and she turned away, pressing her palms to her face. For a long moment, all I heard was the hum of the old fridge, the distant honk of a car outside. Then, quietly, she whispered, "Don't say that unless you mean it, because if you do, it will break me." I reached gently, turning her back to me, and her eyes were wide and wet, and filled with years of unspoken longing. "I mean it," I said, every word. Her lips parted as if to answer, but at that exact moment, Noah padded out again, clutching his blanket, asking if everything was okay. She froze, torn between her son and the possibility blooming between us. That's where we were suspended, in the fragile space between despair and hope, between loss and the promise of something new, as if the next breath could tip everything one way or the other. Type yes to hear the ending. I wanted to ask more, but she steered the conversation toward Lily instead, asking what my daughter liked, what bedtime stories she demanded, and for the first time in years, I found myself laughing with someone who wasn't a colleague or my little girl. She had a way of listening that made me feel unarmored. At the 2-minute hook of our night, the storm outside deepened, rain hammering the windows. The cafe glowed like a pocket of warmth against the bleakness, and she seemed caught between worlds, half in, half out. When I excused myself to take a quick call, I returned to see her pulling coins from her pocket, counting them with her head bent low. She was trying to calculate whether she could afford her half of the bill. My chest burned. "Put that away," I said gently, sliding the check toward myself. "I don't want charity," she replied quickly, eyes flashing, protective of her pride. "It's not charity," I said. "It's a date." Her lips parted, caught between relief and stubbornness, then curved into the faintest smile. But before I could press further, her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, color draining from her face. She muttered an apology, grabbed her backpack, and rushed outside into the rain. I hesitated only a moment before following. She was on the sidewalk, shoulders hunched against the downpour, speaking frantically into the phone. "Please, just one more week, I'll have the rent," she whispered, voice cracking. Then she hung up, blinking rapidly, swiping rain from her lashes. "You okay?" I asked. She turned, startled. I need to go, Eva," I said softly, "talk to me." But she shook her head, pulling the backpack tight, and walked quickly toward the bus stop. I trailed her, umbrella in hand, until we reached the shelter, where a flickering bulb lit a small crowd of weary faces. She stood apart, water dripping from her sleeves, and I caught sight of the fraying strap of her backpack giving way. In that moment, a hook tightened the air. I realized she wasn't just a girl from a blind date. She was someone on the edge of losing everything, someone who carried more weight than anyone should alone, and I couldn't walk away, not after seeing her like this. "Eva," I said quietly, stepping close. "Let me drive you home." She looked up, torn eyes shimmering with both suspicion and longing for relief. Her lips parted, then closed again. Finally, she whispered, "I can't. You wouldn't understand where I live." My heart clenched. "Try me." The bus screeched to a stop then, and she backed away, shaking her head, boarding quickly. Through the window, our eyes locked as the bus pulled off into the rain, leaving me alone under the sputtering light, umbrella trembling in my grip. I knew one thing with startling clarity. This wasn't over.